Good evening, dear viewers, and welcome to the News Bulletin at 8, brought to you by our number one news provider, Eswatini TV. I am Nondomiso Vilagada alongside Zamanzi Manze. Let's take a look at our top stories. The Prime Minister is back home after representing His Majesty King Eswatini III during the 36th African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. The Ministry of Agriculture is working closely with the ministry's parastatals to upscale food production. Cabinet ministers on Tuesday joined Eswatini and registered for local government elections. The news in detail. The Prime Minister Cleopas Dlamini is back home after representing His Majesty King Eswatini III during the 36th African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
The Prime Minister Cleopas Dlamini arrived in the kingdom through the King Eswatini III International Airport. The Prime Minister, when explaining about his trip, he said there were a litany of issues that were discussed during the summit in Ethiopia. He says the security situation in the kingdom of Eswatini was also put on the table.
They further urged the Peace and Security Council to prioritize the implementation of the outcomes of the 16th Ordinary Session of the Assembly of the Union held in Malabo, Equatorial Guinea, in May 2022, to robustly respond to the pressing twin security issues of unconstitutional changes of government and the threat posed by terrorism and violent extremism. The Peace and Security Council also noted with concern the unfolding situation in the Kingdom of Eswatini and requested the AU Commission, in coordination with the SADC and the Kingdom of Eswatini, to promote peace and dialogue towards resolution of the political and social crisis in the country.
It has been almost a month since Eswatini recorded, or rather, having not witnessed a gruesome murder as per the political killings that were seen in the past months or so. The Prime Minister says he's not a security expert, even though they do consult with the security personnel in as far as the dialogue is concerned. He says they do want to stage the dialogue as government. However, they need to be advised by those who are responsible for security matters in the kingdom to say now is the right time for the dialogue. Until then, the dialogue will be put on hold. For Eswatini TV News, I'm Linton Kule with Skumbuzo Dlamini, KM3.
The Minister of Agriculture, Jabulani Mabuza, says to improve food production and further ensure food security in the country, the ministry is working closely with the ministry's parastatals to upscale fruit production. The minister said Namboard is working on a horticulture project that seeks to support vegetable farmers.
When delivering the State of the Nation address on Friday, during the opening of the 5th session of the 11th Parliament, His Majesty King Eswatini III said government has the mandate to ensure the country is food secure through a number of policies by promoting the production and marketing of agriculture and food commodities. Speaking with the Minister of Agriculture, Jabulani Mabuza, said the ministry will continue with the farm input subsidy program and further work closely with the ministry's parastatals to improve food production in the country.
Bayaqala kulima khanze ude kwayena lo 5% le revolving yakanambodi kubo bonke labalimi ama vegetables labasebenzisana naye nambodi badabe ke sebayambhadarela leso sibambiso lesingo 5% nakukodini kukanjalo uhulumende ufaka imali yokuthi ikhona kubambisa bonke labafuna kulima kodini ikakhulukazi nabo bantu labasha nangabe nje umuntu lomusha ufuna kulima kodini so iseklishilo nayo indzawo yalala ungawulima khona ucelile ekhaya bakunika leyo ndzawo kwakho nje kuya ka cotton board ufike uthi ngifuna kulima kodini na indzawo yami ngamahektara amabili nathi tinhlanyelo lengidicelako sitawuthatha ke leto inhlanyelo thina bese sesiyakunika imarket yawo inzinzi na ucetha kumvuna kodini uphinde umnikisa khona e-cotton board sebayamthatha ke bakunika imali yakho sebabamba ke leyo mali yaleti inhlanyelo lesikunike dom.
On the issue of climate change, the minister said the ministry, through extension officers, continues to capacitate farmers on climate-smart agriculture. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Samgal Suekoza Wetsi Kumbozo Dlamini and Smova Shongwe Babane.
The Ministry of Natural Resources and Energy has contracted 4 independent power producers to produce 75 megawatts of renewable energy. This was said by the Acting Minister for Natural Resources and Energy, Jabulani Mabuza.
The energy supply agreement between the Kingdom of Eswatini and South Africa is due for review in 2025, and His Majesty King Mswati III, when delivering the State of the Nation address during the official opening of the 5th session of the 11th Parliament, said the energy sector is critical to economic recovery. In an interview with the Acting Minister of Natural Resources and Energy, Jabulani Mabuza, said the ministry has already engaged with 4 private sector companies for the production of 75 megawatts of renewable energy.
Lesta we launch le project masinyane engcenyela ingakapheli yona lenyanga lesikuyo la le tingaphane sekwendiwe konke le procurement processes asaphelile sesiyadinika private sector companies ukuthi thihambe tiyawusiproducela gas longanga electricity longanga 75 megawatts among the 4 companies. So lo msebenzi loyo ke so tawuvele uchubeke. Yesibili ke nayo lekhulumile ngayo ingwenyama ngu 40 megawatts we biomass. Nayo ke leyo seyiqalile ke yona iseseku procurement stage, but nakhona seyikhona i-shortlisting yaleto tingaphande tawukhona kuchubeka nalo umsebenzi. Kunalenye ke lesibita ukuthi ngulo amaguduza yona ke 13 megawatts yona ke ichamuka from hydro nayo sibheke ukuthi leyo project nayo iphumelele isukume nayo ikhona kusebenza.
The Ministry of Natural Resources is also working on the expansion of Makuka Hydropower Station for the generation of added 33 megawatts. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Samagal Suekoza with Sikumbuzo Dlamini Babane.
Cabinet ministers on Tuesday joined Eswatini and registered for local government elections. The Principal Secretary in the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development, Clifford Mamba, says the minister has postponed the last day of the voter registration.
The voter registration process for this year's local government elections was opened on January 16, where, according to the Ministry of Housing and Urban Development's report, there were over 14,000 Maswati who registered for the local government elections last week. On Tuesday, cabinet ministers joined in and registered for this year's local government elections. PS in the Ministry of Housing, Clifford Mamba, expanded on the importance of having the cabinet partake in the local government elections.
We are currently undergoing local government elections, so the process of local government elections, the most important one of which is to register. If you're a resident and or a landowner, property owner in the town, it's important that you register. So we are quite happy that the Cabinet agreed that we come and register them so that they be seen also to be taking part in this very important national exercise, so that others may also be energized and encouraged to come forward and register for this very important exercise of electing local councillors for local government.
The PS added that the Minister of Housing and Urban Development, Prince Similane, has postponed the closing date of the voter registration process to the 10th of March. Reporting for Eswatini TV News, I'm Samkal Suekoza with Sikumbuzo Dlamini Babane.
The Ministry of Education and Training Principal Secretary Bektemba Gama says in an effort to preserve Siswati language as one of the indigenous languages, all subjects from grade 1 to grade 4 are taught in Siswati, and there are means to digitalize the language. Gama said this during the commemoration of the 2023 International Mother Language Day celebration event, which was organized by Macmillan Publishing Company at Sibanesami Hotel.
This year's theme is multilingual education, a necessity to transform education. The Ministry of Education and Training Principal Secretary Bektemba Gama says government has a plan to preserve Siswati language.
This theme today is also promoting that we speak multiple languages because our neighbors speak different languages. We need to try to learn what the language that they use. And also be cognizant of the fact that we are now in the 4th Industrial Revolution. And therefore, we should find out how we can then improve on the mother tongue access the technologies that are being used now.
The United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, Acting Secretary General Nelson Ndwandwe says globally 40% of the population does not have access to an education in a language they speak or understand.
Bafunzi labangemashumi lamane ekhulwini pheceleti 40% emhlabeni abakhoni kufinyelela ekufunzeni ngelulwimi labalukhulumako noma labaluconza ngcono.
Speaking on behalf of Macmillan Publishing Company's acting managing director, Sbusiso Smelane.
Half the time, our language only, plays a role in normal communication, not your hardcore business communication, venturing into digital space and everything. So, with that theme in mind, we hope as a company that this approach of bringing our language on board, in as much as we embrace the digital space, will come in handy, in advancing the cause not only of the company but of the country.
The idea to celebrate International Mother Language Day was the initiative of Bangladesh. It was approved at the 1999 UNESCO General Conference and has been observed throughout the world since the year 2000. For Eswatini TV News, Fortune Dlangamandla. The
Ministry of Health warns of possible health hazards from the ongoing heavy rains like diarrhea amongst others. This is according to the ministry's health promotional officer Stumol Kele during an interview with Eswatini TV.
The issue of hygiene, there are disposable nappies that get disposed in any place where you find that they may be washed into the rivers, and then that would mean people are exposed to water that is not proper for use. It could be those disposable nappies and not using toilets, where you would find that people who go to the bush during the rainy season, all those things are washed into the streams, where we may then get water that is not proper for us to use at home. We can also emphasize on water harvesting. When the rain starts to pour, people should not collect that water immediately. They should leave the roof to be washed by the rain, so that then as the rain progresses, then you collect the water. And we emphasize that after collecting that water, make sure that you store the water properly. There is another issue of mosquitoes. You find that our yards or our places where we stay are collecting waters or some other components like tins, like unused tires that we dispose of in our places where we stay, collect the rain during the rainy time. So as we go along, you find that mosquitoes breed in those waters.
CIMAC Executive Director Lomkhosi Makakula says amongst topics of discussion in the Labour Law Seminar that will be held next month is the negative impact of COVID-19 on businesses and how businesses can strive post-COVID-19. She was speaking at CIMAC offices during a press briefing on the Labour Law Seminar.
Primarily, it is also to the seminar itself intends to be a thought leadership platform which will ensure that leading topics, leading information on labor relations is discussed, and most importantly is shared amongst all stakeholders in the industrial relations space. See, we also would want to be very inclusive of the country in terms of SMMEs, so axiyo ye business lamakhulu. It's inclusive of large companies, small, medium, and micro companies in the country, as well as the government in terms of policy making, the unions in terms of representation of workers' interests, employers, as well as all levels of the management structure within an organization. We would like to ensure that you come and listen to our speakers whom we've carefully selected, who are leaders in all their sectors, who hold expansive knowledge and experience and are credible practitioners within their own line of work. We would like to also, through the seminar, the theme for this year is post-COVID-19, the changing labor space. We want to assist organizations to also have a culture of saying, whilst we work and we've got our heads down, we also want to look up and say to ourselves, what is the future holding for us?
Red Cross volunteers held a training at the Hilton Garden Hotel where they were being capacitated on response to disasters. This follows the recent trends in disasters.
Following the extensive damage in most parts of the country by the recent storms, the Red Cross Society has facilitated a workshop to capacitate its employees on emergency response. The Red Cross Communications Officer Roundup says they have to reach out and provide first aid despite the fact that some places are inaccessible due to heavy rains.
We are being trained on any new models or any innovative ways of trying to respond to any disasters that may come through. As an organization, we continuously have such trainings, but we always want to be a step ahead each and every time in terms of anything that has to do with disaster and risk management. We try as often as possible as an organization to be ready with resources. However, what we usually do is during a disaster or any emergency that happens, we try and make an assessment to see what really, or rather to ascertain what really those people or those communities need as a matter of emergency. However, in every response that we do, we try and make sure that we bring the first line of support that we can.
She says they work hand in hand with the National Disaster Management Agency. She further states that they are also monitoring Cyclone Freddy and their preparedness should the cyclone hit Eswatini. The training is a 3-day training. Reporting IMK and MCB with Smuva Shongwe, Babane.
Dear viewers, now take a look at our financial updates. Welcome back. You're still watching Eswatini TV in our Sports Roundup News. The Eswatini School Sports Association has announced the return of school sports games, with games expected to begin this week. According to the association's president, Anthony Mdluli, they have also dealt with the issue of some of the schools and teachers who have been reluctant to release their students in the previous years. Mdluli says athletics will be kicking off the games and football will round up the year from different schools.
In our sports news, we begin with the Eswatini School Sports Association that has confirmed the return of the school sports games that are expected to begin this week after school teachers were informed about the calendar last week. The issue of schools that are reluctant to release their students has also been dealt with.
Okay, in terms of time. Abasathakasela ukuthi bantwana baqhubeke baphume bayodlala, kepha-ke njengobashito PS sitazama lokuthi lama programs ethu siwa-align nale calendar yethu ikolwa ukuze kunga-interfere nema exams.
In other news, the Eswatini Olympic and Commonwealth Games Association has confirmed their readiness for the 2022 Youth Commonwealth Games to be held in Trinidad and Tobago in August this year.
Is already coming through, particularly for the Commonwealth Youth Games. We are busy. The Games Commission has already held its first meeting in relation to those games. And as the information comes through, I think that the meetings are going to be progressively being engaged, whereby we are going to be selecting our top athletes who are going to be representing the country at these prestigious games.
Some of the outstanding sporting associations in recent months, such as Taekwondo, are likely to get a chance to represent the country during the games. Eswatini TV Sports, Fabisum Sundara, Babane.
That is all we had for tonight, but before we wrap up, we'll take a quick recap of today's headlines. The Prime Minister is back home after representing his Majesty King Eswatini III during the 36th African Union Summit in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. The Ministry of Agriculture is working closely with the ministry's parastatals to upscale food production. Cabinet ministers on Tuesday joined Eswatini and registered for local government elections. That brings us to the end of our news bulletin tonight. Up next is the weather forecast for selected towns. Good night, Eswatini.